Welcome back to Morbidly Bewitched, or should I say, ahoy mateys. Yes. In the last episode I was discussing what to do with cremated remains, and in this episode I'm going to be talking about full human remains being buried at sea, what you need to know and how you can go about it. Ah yes, burials at sea. When most people think of that, the first things that would tend to spring to your mind is naval war veterans and flags draped over coffins and ceremonies with gunfire. But this option is actually available to anybody who likes it. You don't have to be a naval wartime hero, you don't have to be a sea captain, you might just actually like the sea. I love swimming, but I don't really like the sea. The deep sea. Can't imagine why. Maybe it was a film? Anyway. For the UK and Northern Ireland, there are three main areas where people can be buried at sea. This is off the Needles, Isle of Wight, between Hastings and Newhaven, and off the northeast coast of Tynemouth. You can choose a different location for burial at sea, however it's not that straightforward. You must provide the exact coordinates for where this is to take place. It has to be 600 feet of depth and a minimum of 3 nautical miles from land. This brings me on to my other subject of what you need. You need to apply for a license for a burial at sea, kind of similar to you would have to apply for a license to let off fireworks. This is done through the Marine Management Organisation. Once you apply to the Marine Management Organisation, or MMO, they will then put that into process. If everything's standard, it's say off the Needles, Isle of Wight, it shouldn't take too long, maybe a week to a fortnight for that to be processed. It is going to cost you money though for that licence. Not masses, but maybe between £50 to £175. If, however, you want to be a little bit unusual and go off the grid, this licence could take a substantially longer amount of time to process. You would be allocated a case manager from the MMO, and they would have to look into the traffic, the marine life, absolutely everything that they take into account for you carrying out any form of disposal in the water. Your first steps to burial at sea are going to be very similar to any other form of committal. You're going to allocate a funeral director to take care of your loved one, Uncle Jimmy. They're going to take them into their care, look after them, organise the service. The service itself would be recommended to take place on land like any other standard service, because it can take up to 5 hours to travel from the harbour to the point of the committal. Your next step is then to employ a third party to take care of the actual burial at sea itself. Oh yes, your local funeral director can't just put Uncle Jimmy onto the stena line. Some of the companies that will help you and assist in all of your arrangements for burial at sea will be people like the Britannia Shipping Company, the Maritime Volunteer Group, and you can also go private. Now, to go private is quite expensive. This is people dedicated solely to this task. Added benefits is though they will take care of things like the applications of the licence for the burial at sea on your behalf and take care of that side of administration. Other paperwork that's going to be required is the death certificate, a free from infections form, and an out of country order. Approximately 12 people per year opt for burial at sea. When you do get onto the vessel with your loved one at the harbour, you're allowed up to 10 passengers along with yourself and the body to travel out to the designated area for the committal. If you want more people than that, you're going to pay a wee bit extra because they will deploy a second boat just to carry the passengers. He's all ready to go? I'm away to the harbour. I'll see you there. For the body itself, there is quite a few guidelines that need to be adhered to for a burial at sea. Firstly, the body cannot be embalmed. This is for pretty obvious reasons. The formaldehyde and the chemicals used in the embalming process would pose quite a risk to marine wildlife. So that's a big no-no. Now for the coffin itself, this is extremely strict for burial at sea and will be checked. The coffin itself must be of soft, solid wood. It can't be made of any kind of plastics or resins, so you're kind of thinking along the lines of a green burial except in water. There has to be 40 to 50 2-inch holes drilled throughout the entire coffin to allow the seawater in. The corners of the coffin must be butt jointed and straightened with mild steel right angled brackets. You have to have at least 200 kilograms of either iron, steel or concrete clamped to the base of the coffin and reinforced with mild steel brackets. The weight itself must be evenly distributed so that whenever the coffin enters the water, it doesn't upend. 2 long mild steel bands running from head to foot of the coffin, and finally several mild steel bands running from foot to head of the coffin at 30 centimetre intervals, and of course any kind of inner lining, anything on the body has to be biodegradable and natural and non-toxic. Also designed to withstand impact and travel at a reasonable rate to the seabed. Yes, there's a lot. So after all of that, as I'm sure you can imagine, there's going to be a lot of weight involved in that coffin. And there's going to be 3 different routes for the 3 parties to take on the day of the committal. The funeral director, the party that's taking care of the actual burial at sea, and the family. The first route is going to be for the funeral director to take the coffin to the part of the harbour where they will meet a crane. This crane then lifts the coffin to the boat and sets it in place. The company that's dealing with the burial at sea then travels around to another part of the harbour to meet the family, because the family has been given a completely different route to meet the boat to keep things nice and dignified. As mentioned before, the journey itself from harbour to point of committal can be quite long, usually about 5 hours, which is why it's advisable to have the service on land. When you reach the point of committal, then the maritime words are said, which I absolutely love, and I quote, "The sea is the largest cemetery, and its slumbers sleep without monument. All other graveyards show symbols of distinction between great and small, rich and poor, but the ocean cemetery. The king, the clown, the prince, and the peasant are alike, undistinguishable." The coffin is lowered, and as you could imagine, with that sheer volume of weight, it disappears instantly. So I hear you ask, why all of the bother? Why the holes? Why let the seawater in? Why put so much weight in the coffin, I hear you say? Well, that's quite simple. If you don't follow these procedures, you could run into a little bit of bother, like floaters. As the years has went on, thoughts has been put in place to actually take DNA tests of any deceased if the family wish to have them buried at sea, just in case down the line any body parts show up in the Isle of Wight, which has happened, and thousands has been spent by the coroners trying to determine who these people are in case it's a murder or foul play, when if a DNA test actually had been taken, it would have deciphered there and then that no, that was Uncle Jimmy and he decided to get buried at sea and that's his arm. However, please do also bear in mind that if you go to the bother, you stick to the rules, the regulations and everything else that the Marine Management Organisation has put in place, then this should not occur. Once all is said and done, you will receive a lovely little certificate that tells you the coordinates of the drop-off point of the committal so that you can, I don't know, frame it, put it on the wall. I would. Join me in my next video where I will be discussing cryogenics, one of my favourite topics. So please subscribe and I'll see you soon.